there are some of you who are probably thinking, listen, I'm not responsible for somebody else's feelings. I got over this a long time ago. It's about time they got over it too. Or, what they've done to me is worse than what I've done to them. So I will deal with reconciliation when they come groveling to me. It's not my responsibility. Well, what does God say to that? What does Jesus say to that? Matthew 5:21, this is part of the Sermon on the Mount. Our Lord says, you have heard that it was said to those of old, you shall not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you that everyone who is angry with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council, and whoever says, you fool, will be liable to the hell of fire. So if you are offering your gift at the altar and there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar and go. First, be reconciled to your brother and then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going with him to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge and the judge to the guard and you be put in prison. Truly, I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. So Jesus in this teaching, he says something that we have a hard time accepting, and that is that if you insult someone, if you hate someone in your heart, if you hurt someone verbally, emotionally, it is just as bad in his eyes as murder. And that's hard for us because to us, there's no higher crime than taking someone's life when it's not in defense of your country or in defense of those you love. You just kill someone. Well, that's terrible. You deserve death for that, right? And yet Jesus would say, yeah, but if you're just allowing your anger towards this person to burn inside you and you're not doing anything about it, if you're insulting that person, he even lists a specific insult they used back then. He says, you fool. In Greek, or actually Aramaic is the term the language he's using here. It's a word raka, R-A-C-A. And it literally means empty head, but figuratively, that was what you called someone when you're like, you're not worth my time. You're not even worth talking to. And the point is, if you're going to treat someone with contempt, you might as well kill them in God's eyes, because it's just as bad. Because here's the thing, here's the point. If you don't hear anything else I say, it's this. Listen to this. God cares more about your relationships to other human beings than you can possibly imagine. And he illustrates this with a couple of illustrations. And one is, if you're going to worship, and in Jesus' day, in Judaism where he grew up, you didn't go and sit in a building like we're doing here and listen to a sermon and sing songs. No, worship in his context was you brought a bull or a lamb or something else precious into the temple and you offered it to the Lord as a sacrifice. And Jesus is saying, no matter how great your sacrifice, if you're standing there and you got the prize bull of your herd and you're like, man, I'm really going to be on God's good side after I give this. And then you remember, oh yeah, that guy is still mad at me. Oh yeah, that woman is still hurt by what I did or said. He says, don't even offer that offering. Leave it behind and go make things right, and then God will accept your worship. And it's hard for us to imagine because we've grown up thinking of a sort of spiritual point system where every time we show up on a Sunday morning, God's impressed, right? And if we actually endure a whole 30-minute sermon, and especially if we don't fall asleep, man, God is really impressed. And if we sing those songs, and especially if we sing well, if we offer a big offering, if we stick a big offering in that box, God is just blown away with gratitude. And yet, what Jesus is saying here is, God accepts our worship. When we're not right with our brothers, with our sisters, if we're not attentive to our relationships with others, God accepts Sunday morning worship from us the same way a wife would from her cheating husband if he brought her flowers. Any woman will tell you, yeah, if my husband's kind to me, sure, flowers are great. But if he's mistreating me, if he's abusing me, if he's cheating on me, you think you can buy me off with a bouquet of flowers? You think that's all it takes? God cares about how we treat others. And the second illustration he gives is, if you're in a lawsuit, someone has accused you of something, they've taken you to court. Jesus says, your primary concern shouldn't be whether you win or lose. Your primary concern should be, what do I need to do to make this relationship right? I've clearly hurt this person. We were in business together and he feels like I cost him money. Well, what do I need to do to Help him overcome that. Maybe we had a dispute. We're neighbors and they're mad about something I did. And so they've taken me to court. Well, what do I need to do to make that relationship right? And listen, this isn't free legal advice from Jesus. This isn't something you go to your attorney and say, well, Jesus says I got to settle out of court. This is him saying, instead of always thinking about who wins and who loses, saying what matters more is that person over there. And the way I picture it is when we're in conflict with someone, it's sort of like two people who are in the same army who get mad at each other and they dig separate foxholes and they're lobbing grenades at each other. That's the conflict we're in. You've got to have the courage to get out of that foxhole and approach them, even though you know they may blow you up. And even though you know that everybody else seeing this goes, it looks like he lost because he's the one holding the white flag. You don't care about any of that. You just say, all that matters is my relationship with this person, because after all, we're in the same army. We're both children loved by God. And that's what our Father expects of us. So how do we do this?